Well, welcome to Would You Like Fries with That Tech podcast. I'm Nate, and we are joined today by another one of our Dynamo guests, Brian Adolf, who is with Transworld. And Brian does some really interesting work in the business world, specifically in the M&A space. How you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing great.
Tell us a little bit about you, Brian, and what you're doing in the M&A space.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people that are in the process, especially in restaurants and bars and things like that. They call it the silver tsunami, even though we've not seen that materialize as much as they did. But there's a lot of restaurant owners that have thought about passing down their business over the generations to family members, and then they found out those family members just haven't had their hearts in the restaurant industry as they have, and they don't want to hold them to that, and they want to go off and be doctors or accountants or other things. And then they start to think about, well, what do I want to do with this restaurant that I've had all my life, or that that's been passed down. And unfortunately, I see a lot of times that you see on Channel 8, or you see in the paper, hurry up and come. This is our last weekend. We've been open for generations and serving our world famous lasagna. It's our last chance because we're going to be closing the doors. And there's nothing sadder than that, when there's been fans of the restaurant for generations that would like nothing more than to carry on that legacy of the business, to come in and carry on and pick up that torch and help that family to live on. And so, and as far as restaurants go, that's one of the things that I help do, is match and find that fit, find that fan of that business to come in and help carry on the torch, especially when a family member may not be interested in that, but to help find the perfect match for the seller and the buyer to come together, to find that relationship where they can not change the business in meaningful ways, but to help it to expand, to grow, and to help the legacy to live on for generations. Maybe not in the same family line, but where for generations to come, even if they did go off and become doctors or accountants or other professional careers, where they can still come to that restaurant for generations to come and say, our great grandmother started this and was a part of this restaurant, and tell the story, for said, for generations, for history, for their family members, to be proud of that. So that's the biggest thing I'm doing in kind of the restaurant industry. And there's a lot of that going on right now, just because we are working with a lot of the baby boomers, a lot of people that are 65 and 75, in that age group that are still actually working in the restaurant business, and still, kind of carrying that on and just don't know what to do.
What's the biggest challenge that a restaurant owner needs to be aware of? Maybe somebody new coming into the space looking to purchase a restaurant.
Well, I think anybody that works in a restaurant industry already knows there's a lot, and your heart has to be in it, and you need to obviously manage cost. That's probably one of the biggest things in running a restaurant. If you're coming from an outside industry, kind of looking in, it looks easier. In the hospitality end of things, you just need to make people happy, and you just need to serve good food. But there's a lot of the operations and the back of the house stuff, as far as the ordering and the managing cost. And there is a bit of an art and a science to that as well, and creativity in managing those things. The hardest thing, and the thing, unfortunately, that we see when a new business owner is going to come in and they start looking at making those changes, to maybe start cutting cost, they start changing the menu recipes, they start actually investing in a restaurant, to make it, they're thinking to build it, to make it better. Maybe they see that some of the table booths have tears in them, cosmetic issues. Maybe they think they need a new sign out front. Maybe they immediately think they need to make changes in order to improve upon the restaurant. And that's the biggest mistake that we see. And those are usually the restaurants that unfortunately have to go back on the market within the next year, because they they don't understand that the foundation has been laid and the legacy has been built and the cash flow has been managed. So they don't work with kind of the seasonality and with the customer base that's been there to learn the cash flow that's coming in. So they spend the money before it's coming in, before the customers come in, or they start making recipe changes. So if you start getting, let's say, a Cajun chicken pasta, but you want to make a change in order to save on the chicken, you start getting cubed chicken, but that person is used to coming in and getting a certain dish a certain way, and then they sense that there's a new owner, and then it's not the way they like it. They're going to leave. They're going to say this isn't the same restaurant anymore, to branch out. So you start lose customers that way. Or on the other end, you start investing heavily and you spend the money that you would depend on for other things in the business, and you don't realize that there's seasonality to certain restaurants, and you start running into cash flow issues because you spent money on that new sign or those cosmetic changes. You spent money trying to improve upon things, and then you run into cash flow issues down the line because you didn't understand the seasonality of the business, up front and the foundation base. So biggest thing people coming into a new restaurant, especially on the acquisition side that we see, is making changes in the first year before they understand the seasonality, or making changes right off the bat with ingredients and things like that, things that have worked. So we generally tell people don't make any changes for the first 6 months. Look anything noticeable to employees or to customers. Kind of work with what is there, see, you can make notes and kind of plan for those changes. But yeah, you don't want your customers to notice changes, and you don't want your employees to kind of notice changes, because you want a smooth transition, and you need to get a feeling for the cash flow and the foundation, because that's the reason that you bought an existing business to begin with.
So there's certainly things changing industry-wise in the restaurant industry. Whether somebody's buying or selling, or they're going to stay right where they're at, what are the biggest things that somebody needs to be aware of to be ready to change within the industry right now?
I think one of the things is either the cash discounting. That's one thing that we see.
What's cash discounting?
Well, as far as putting, having customers either pay or help to offset some of the processing costs that are associated, or to raise prices. So that's always a decision, whether they want to share some of those fees with the patrons that are coming into the restaurant, or whether they're going to raise cost and have that kind of all in and reflected on menus. More and more restaurant owners are kind of passing that on, and putting a convenience fee, or putting that as a fee on the receipts, and kind of passing that along, and having, or saying, for cash paying customers, they're not going to have that fee. Processors are going to charge a processing fee regardless. Now, whether the customers are going to help to offset that fee, or the business owner is going to pay that solely on their own, it's going to be paid for one way or the other, off the menu pricing. So either way, it's going to raise the cost of the menu item. Now, whether that's going to be shared with the customer as a raised price on the menu, or whether that's going to be shared with the customer as a convenience fee. And more and more restaurants are sharing that as a convenience fee, and that couple dollars extra, usually we are finding that it doesn't really change as far as the volume and the people going to that business, because it is a convenience, and they realize that not needing to go to the bank to pull out cash and do those things is a convenience for both them and for the restaurant, not to have the risk of handling cash and needing to go to the bank as well.
So going back to the I just bought a restaurant scenario, making minor, don't make a lot of changes. Is that a change that a newly acquired restaurateur could make without hurting their new brand too much? Is that starting cash discounting? So or would that be a 12-month wait again?
I want to say it'd be a 12-month, but probably maybe a 90-day. you
Okay.
know, and something like that would be something that you could start and you could take a look at and you can put feelers out. Because one of the things when your first couple of weeks actually at closing, one of the transitions that you're going to be doing is you're going to start looking at vendors. You will either need to transition from the old vendor and the services that they were doing into your name, or you're going to get new vendors. So it is a good time to kind of shop and check out prices, whether that's insurance, whether that's POS, whether that is those things. So it's a good time to kind of look at is there cost on those areas. I wouldn't say that that's going to truly disrupt the employees in a lot of cases, especially if there's going to be improvements that are going to be made on the technology side. That can be something that a new owner may be bringing to the table that may not be necessarily disruptive. But there's also going to be a timetable, so all that's not going to start on day one. Those are transitions that are going to take a little bit of time in order to implement in the first place. So yeah, I would say as far as the transitions on vendors, yeah, you can start looking at those things as you're transitioning services from the old owner to the new owner, and kind of have a plan in place and a transition time.
Let's talk about choosing vendors and service providers. What are some considerations an owner should have in mind when they go about shopping vendors and looking at that? What do they need to look at?
Well, obviously, you want to make sure that somebody has a reputable name in the industry. You don't want to go with somebody that's just starting off. You want to make sure industry experience is important, and that goes for insurance, that goes for your accountant, that goes for the professional sphere, most importantly, especially with restaurants in general. It's a different industry, it's a different niche. So yeah, just going for the lowest cost provider and things. Again, you can run into issues if you are trying to kind of fit that square peg in a round hole just by trying to make something work because it's a solution that can work. It doesn't mean that it should work. Cost-wise, you really need to think if something is tailor-made for the industry, because that's going to provide the most seamless experience for your customers and for your employees. And especially if it's a new acquisition, that's the most important thing, is that transition time, both for your customers and your employees, in order to kind of maintain that transition, which is ultimately the most important thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of technology changes coming to the restaurant industry. Uh, is there any essential tools that you think a restaurateur should have, like must have this to be a restaurant in mid 2020s now?
Yeah, so obviously taking cash and check. I mean, somebody needs to be taking credit cards. It's just it's an inconvenience for somebody to need to take cash, whether you're charging the convenience fee or not. It doesn't so much matter how you handle that. Just as long as you can provide the convenience of multiple payment methods for your customers. Now, on the electronic side, on the menus, whether you have QR codes, for menus for the phones, a lot of people are going to digital menus rather than having the papers and things. Having some of that technology is helpful, and honestly doesn't really cost a whole lot for a restaurant to implement. But you have to understand that, yeah, things are going that way, and a lot of people are becoming accustomed to that if they are going out, especially after COVID, because those changes have been implemented. It's what people are getting used to.
What about like kiosk ordering, like ordering from the table or more quick
Yep.
order stuff? Is that are you seeing more of that?
Yeah, especially well, more and more on the franchise side and the larger places. You're not going to see that in a fine dining restaurant, obviously.
Sure.
So it really depends on the experience. We are seeing more and more of that, but again, you need to be true to the identity, of the location and the expectation. So don't go outside of the identity of kind of what is there, but if you can add to that with over that kind of identity of the restaurant, um, yeah, you'd be in good shape. But again, you want to make sure that it's an add-on as far as the convenience and not something that's going to take away, anything. But if you can add to the experience and provide more options for your customers to make it more convenient for them, always do that. Always provide more options. Always, provide the ability to make things more convenient. But if you start to find that you're adding things that are going to be a hurdle, that can actually, that can detract from business. So you want to have options. You want to make, electronic options available to people, but then you also want to treat your older customers and have service options and be able to service them the way that they want to be treated as well.
Sure. What's the low-hanging fruit on costs that you normally see in a business? Like, what's the first thing that somebody should cut?
Well, that's hard. So, I mean, there's always a cost and there's always a benefit and a value of things. So, I'm not a proponent of actually looking at cost cutting as a first measure. I truly believe you need to look at the value. Look at the value and look at what something brings first. So, don't look at necessarily what you can cut because you need to look at the productivity. The lowest price things that you can get can honestly have the highest cost. So if you are going to get a lower price provider on something, it honestly may cost you business when it breaks. So higher quality, although it's going to cost you more money, is actually going to bring you more value in the long run because you're going to have less headaches and things are going to be run smoother for your business and you're going to have a better customer experience. So really, you need to always consider value first rather than the price of things. And that's another thing that we see. Somebody starts to just look at the numbers and go by the numbers and say, where can I make extra money? And that's a big mistake. You need to look at where the value of your business truly lies and what is truly attracting and maintaining and keeping your business alive. Because if you're just looking at cutting costs, a lot of times by price alone, you're going to be hindering your business right from the get-go. So you need to look at, even if you are paying a high premium on things, it truly may be worth the value that it's bringing to the table. And so you need to consider that first and foremost. So look at the productivity, look at what it's bringing to the table, and look at what you would lose if you had a lower cost provider first and foremost.
Okay.
And that goes for everything across the table.
Well, I really appreciate you being a guest on the Would You Like Fries with That Tech podcast, Brian. I got a couple of follow-up questions here at the end, real rapid fire. What's your
Sure.
go-to drink?
So as far as alcoholic beverages, I stick with the Scotch neat. So don't mix things up. Coffee, I drink a black coffee or Americano, or if I'm feeling foo-foo, it's a white mocha.
I knew there's a reason we liked each other. Uh, uh, favorite fine dining meal?
Oh wow, I'm honestly not that fancy. So I mean, I stick to my just straight Italians. So I mean, I could do a good just rigatoni or um, a chicken parm. Again, I'm not a big steak eater or a big meat eater. I've kind of grew up with Superman syndrome with chicken nuggets and mac and cheese are still my favorite meals. So fine dining is kind of outside my realm. I can eat pasta and chicken every day.
Okay. So then in the theme, Would You Like Fries with That Tech podcast? How do you like your fries?
I don't actually eat a lot of fries. I don't eat a lot of fried food.
Ah, you're killing me, Brian.
Yeah, I know. I know. I honestly, I don't. I'm not a big potato eater either. So I will eat a couple fries just from the kids meal when they get them, or when we do get them, I'll steal a couple, but it's always just a couple. So yeah, I don't eat a lot of fries. However, fair food. So you throw enough chili and cheese and onions and jalapenos and things like that on things, and yeah, it becomes a meal.
There you
We can
go.
do
Fully
that.
loaded fair fries.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Make it a whole meal. Hey, how do
Yep.
we get in touch with you, Brian, and learn more about what you do there with your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always connect with me. My business card online is www.brianconnect, spelled with an I. So Brian Connect, spelled with an I. I'll give you my direct cell phone number is 330-325-4542. You can always book an appointment. I can do a business valuation. If you're looking for a business, we can always have a chat. I do free business valuations, or if you're just you want to see if business ownership is right for everybody. But if you're looking for a business, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of different things out there. Or if you're just looking at ways to improve a business for a future passing a future business down someday, whether it is to a family member or to a friend. SBA has programs right now, so if you've got a key either family member or somebody that's currently working in a business, where they'll cover 100% of the business financing, so no money down, and they'll actually finance the acquisition of the business. So I actually can help out with the getting the financing of some of those programs in line. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for somebody that's looking to kind of branch out on their own if they've been working for somebody else. And there's also, I see a lot in the restaurant industry of kind of what's going on in different businesses that have sold and what's made them sell and what's made them more attractive. So if you just kind of want to know, what different businesses have done that's made them more attractive than others, yeah, we can have a chat about that too.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us today on Would You Like Fries with That Tech podcast, Brian. Great to get to know you, and looking forward to talking to you again sometime. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.